John Russell from More Perfect Union ventured to Erie, Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump was holding a campaign rally. Russell interviewed several of the MAGA faithful about issues where he suspected they might have some common ground with the left, and his findings were truly eye-opening. I really encourage everybody to watch this whole video. At the conclusion of this stream, I will link to it in the description. The video is 12 minutes. I did a little cut of it that's 3 minutes long, just to get to the parts that I most thought we should show. So here's a little trailer cut that I made of this video from More Perfect Union, but you should absolutely subscribe to their YouTube channel. They do fantastic video work, and definitely watch this thing in its entirety at the conclusion of this program. So here's John Russell in Erie, Pennsylvania, talking to the Trumpers.
I've poured drinks at a Rust Belt dive bar for the last year, and when your county votes for Trump and the bartender looks like I do, people kind of assume that you're on the same page. But sometimes you actually are. So here's my hunch. For all the focus on culture war issues, the working class on the left and the right have a lot more in common than we're led to believe. And if that's true, it could and should have huge implications for the upcoming presidential election. So I went to Erie, Pennsylvania to find out.
I worked down in West Virginia.
Yes.
Yep, on the rigs for evil Big Red, Halliburton.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Halliburton, we were 2 weeks on, 1 week off, so you never got to go home. We were the lowest paid of all the workers out there. I only made $13.50 when I got hired on.
For Halliburton.
For Halliburton, yep. Probably wouldn't even have an Iraq war if it wouldn't have been for the Halliburton and Cheney and stuff. We were expendable. That's all it was. Halliburton, Big Red, they called it. You're just part of the machine, and the machine can be replaced.
As expendable as, people who went over to fight a rich person's war in Iraq.
Yep.
Do you think the finance sector, does it have too much power, just the right amount of power, not enough power?
Way too much power.
The financial sector.
100%. Yes. These people really, a lot of these people they don't realize are unelected officials. So all these politicians have this plan for how they're going to fix the economy, but then they just get in there, they don't do anything, and they're funded by the people, and those people are not elected, and they control the people that are elected.
The big guys are beating out the small guys, or even the family-owned businesses, easily.
A lot of that's driven by these really large corporations that are, just by their size, pushing the little guy out.
Yes.
How big of a problem do you think that is?
That's an ultimate problem. That reminds you of watching them Westerns movies when they would go to some small town and the one guy owns the bar, he owns the tack place, he owns that. Yes. There's so many houses for sale in our neighborhood. I was going to go to town and say, are these all, can we find out, are these just real people buying them, or is this like proxies? See, BlackRock proxies, Vanguard proxies. Are they buying all these homes so people can't own them and they're just going to rent them?
This contract was $30 billion. That was from workers standing together, didn't it?
Okay, this, first of all, I just want to give an introduction to what he's talking about here. He's talking about the UPS contract right now.
The contract was $30 billion. That was from workers standing together. Didn't have anything to do with government. Is that something you guys support?
Sure.
Yes.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. Absolutely. Wow.
So if my coworkers wanted to make more, and since I want to make more, I'll probably organize something that could help make us more, like maybe a petition.
Yeah.
You'll see things like the board or whatever they put on, the TV. You'll have
trying to divide people.
Yes.
A lot of the stories are trying to divide people.
Divide, keep them off the ball.
We're not supposed to be doing this.
It's weird that it's that.
They want. I feel like this is all for distraction, to be honest.
Yeah,
they want us to argue.
It is. That's
exactly. They want us to argue.
Facade of or there's two sides, when in reality there hasn't been two sides since the 1980s.
All right, so just find me a Kamala Harris rally or a Joe Biden rally or a Pete Buttigieg rally where you're going to hear anything about, hey, are BlackRock and Vanguard buying all the houses? Is that why nobody can afford a house? I could have used a little more cowbell. Right, I could use some more cowbell. Not going to find any cowbells in the crowd there. The guy at the end just making an explicitly pro-union statement. Even the guys, the thing I found incredibly fascinating about that is even the guy said, hey, they want us talking about the border and all these divisive issues, which Trump certainly traffics in himself. And a lot of people at these rallies, there was the one part where the guy with the white hair and the T-shirt talked about how, yeah, Trump is a capitalist himself. You know, he's not perfect. You know, he's a real estate guy, right? I mean, once you actually, you know, engage with a lot of,
you don't come at them with the cowbell.
Right. Once you don't come out them with a cowbell and you actually just go past the hat and the t-shirt, you'll actually find a much, much deeper understanding of the problems facing the country than you would find at any blue MAGA rally. It's not even close. And I've been saying this for 7 years now. I've been saying this for a long time. And John Russell also did a video in East Palestine, Ohio, which we covered. Russell, this is while you were in India, but I had a couple guest hosts on. I forget who was guesting for that. We covered that as well, where you had a lot of Trump fans line up at the parade to greet Donald Trump, and they were talking the same kind of stuff that these guys are talking here. And so there is real potential for a sort of cross-partisan, unity, class-based populist coalition. That potential is being stymied by people who don't want it. And that a big part of that is big tech, right? A big part of that is the demonization of people and speech, so that people never get to know each other well enough to check under the hood and say, okay, what do these people really think beyond the memes, beyond they wear and the shirts and everything? What are they actually about? And in so many cases, not all, look, every candidate has their hardcore base. And I'm not saying there are no extreme right-wing white nationalist Trump supporters. There are, but that is nowhere near the majority. I don't even think that's a critical mass of them. I think one of the reasons I was not surprised that Trump won is because those people in that video, those are the people I run into all the time, living in a middle class of New York City. Like, those are just the people you're online with at the supermarket. And I'm thinking, these are the people who are going to come out in droves and vote for him, not because they're bigots, not because they're nationalists, but because of exactly what they're talking about there. And I think that pretty much, I don't say it proves it, because that's a small sample size, but it certainly demonstrates it.
Her cat was named Vagina.
Hey man, nobody does showbiz like Trump. Yeah, well, this is why I wrote an article a while ago arguing. Funny enough, you're seeing more people saying it now. You're better off trying to take over the Republican Party, because the voting bloc that's most interested in the kinds of economic reforms that the left supports, they're in the Republican Party. A bunch of suburban in this house, we lawn sign shit libs have no particular interest in economic reforms. They have a lot of interest in signaling their support for those reforms. It's part of their virtue. But, that's no different than the Victorian era Christians signaling their piety, right? I mean, it has nothing to do with the reality of their lives or how they treat their servants in that era or in this era. So it only makes sense, of course, these people who it's in their economic interest to support those kinds of policies. If you have working class and working poor people supporting Donald Trump, of course, those are going to be the pro-union people. Also, because you've got this establishment versus anti-establishment thing going on, the people who are going to be at a Democrat rally supporting Democrats are people who swallow the idea that our political establishment is working and that the people in that establishment deserve to be there. They're not insurgents. They're quite the opposite. The platform and the ethos that Hillary ran on, that never stopped being the ethos of the party. America is already great, right? It just needs some tweaking. Who are all these naysayers? What are they complaining about, right? So of course you're going to find the people who are down for the cause, who are down to actually upend the system. Of course they're in the other party, and particularly around Trump, who is public enemy number one for the establishment. But if you go and you talk to them about what they think, Trump is a brick through the window. They're not so much. We know that what was it? A majority of Trump voters had a negative view of him on the day of the election in 2016 in exit polls.
I don't know if it was a majority of Trump voters. I remember the statistic that jumped out was it was about 20% of them said he was unfit to be to be president.
So what does that tell you? You know, I mean that this is where we have to build, as Shama would say, as a lot of people would say, we need to get away from this left-right Republican Democrat thing, and we need to build a working class movement that transcends that. And something Shama said that I appreciated, and this is my view. Yeah, I mean, look, I come from the street, man. I'm not going to say there's no reactionary views, legitimately, not just, you know, crazy politically correct. Like, yeah, man, there's some legitimate racism and sexism and homophobia in that class. I would argue there's a lot of that in the upper class too. They just hide it better. But you're not going to win them over to thinking a different way about that by ringing a cowbell in their face. Come together around your economic causes, and that doesn't mean you need to throw marginalized groups under the bus in order to win them over. But they're a lot more likely to listen to what you have to say about that if you are supporting their economic interests and making common economic cause. That has to be the starting point of a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I thought this video demonstrated that very, very well.
Please clap.